Hi guys. A very common question I hear is, how do you write a low budget film? Or what affects a budget? What is a low budget film? How can my writing affect it? And everyone goes for the simple stuff like visual effects. Don't put visual effects in your film. Uh, you know, and then they jump for the low hanging fruit. Limited number of locations. Make your film a contained film. People really don't know what that means. Cut down a number of cast. All that sort of stuff sounds really obvious. So let's look at the other things as well, but also that, which makes a low budget film. This might be a slightly longer than usual video. What I normally do is contain things to a single topic. The 1 page per minute rule. How do I add story to my script? Those sorts of things. 5-6 minutes worth of explanation. This will be slightly longer because we're going to cover off a fair few topics, a fair few aspects of things that impact on a budget. Number one, and this is stuff that many writers don't think about. I'm going to show you an image now. There's a woman running down a road. She's exercising. She's exhausted. She stops. Now, the decision you make in the next action line will have a huge impact on a budget, especially a small budget. Does she just stand there, hunched over, taking huge breaths, getting her breath back before she runs on? Or does she do the typical, television commercial video film clip and get her water and spray it all over herself to cool down? One of those two images is far more expensive. The standing there, taking huge gulps of breath, getting her wind back, cheap. Because if they get it wrong, there's a line after you go, okay, let's do it again, another take, another take, another take. That's how fast they are. But if she sprays water all over herself and she gets a line wrong, it's okay, let's do a reset. So what does that reset look like? Well, we have to change makeup, we have to change wardrobe, have to refill the water bottle, have to fix her hair. Maybe if it's that had a big impact on her clothing, it's a fresh set of clothes. Maybe we can see the water on the road now, or in the environment. She's wet the table, wet the wall, whatever. So now we have to clean that up. That reset takes time, and time is money, which means if it takes you 10-15 minutes to reset a scene and you want to take 4 takes, that's an hour out of your day. That could be another setup. That could be another shot. That could be something else because you decided to have that actor spray water on herself rather than just stand there and take gulps of air. And those are the things that you really have to take into consideration when you're writing. It is the effect on the visuals and the next visuals and how those visuals are going to be impacted by your decision. The next one people say is cut down a number of locations. And I'm sure they don't even know why or how they're doing that. The biggest thing that impacts from a location is a change. If we have to take these actors and this scenario and maybe this crew and move them to another location, that's expensive. You have to acquire that location. So that's, if you've got 2 locations, you always have to acquire them. But say you're only using 1 location at a time, which is an inefficient way of doing it. So you've got to acquire that second location. You have to secure that second location. You have to make sure that you can go back to that second location for pickups if something's wrong or something's changed. And then the other one is that you have got to be able to transport people there. So you've got to be able to take your camera crew, which might be 1 man in a bag. I mean, I've got a couple of just boxes over there. They have my cameras, my Blackmagic rig. So you've got to be able to take the crew, take the sound, set up when you get there, park, make sure that the location's right, make sure that the lighting's what you want. All those sorts of stuff is a setup. That's a move. That's time, that's money, that's expensive. The only time that 2 locations isn't as expensive as you think it would be is I've been involved in a film just recently where there's a phone call. We just used a second unit. There was actors at the other side of the phone call that weren't in this location, so they could be filmed at another time, completely independently. They didn't have to be, and we could use the second unit. We could use downtime when the first unit wasn't available, which is what was happening. There was nothing for the first unit to do. They just did a quick organisational change, got the 2 actors in, sat them in a car, recorded the phone call, done. When you're using, if that was a second unit for the day, say you had a second unit for the day and you recorded that one side of the phone call, you can then use any time you've got left for that second unit to grab B-roll stuff and even long takes of them getting in and out of the car if the car was being used. You could do B-roll of the city. You could do B-roll of the actors. You could get other stuff. You don't have to waste that second unit. You can use it to grab a whole lot of stuff to give your editors choice, which is an important thing to have. So that's the other thing too, making sure you're getting your coverage, which can, if it's a complex scene with lots of over shoulders, lots of conversation, lots of movement within a longer scene. Longer scenes take longer to cover because not only the length of the scene, but you've got to make sure that you've got enough options for the editors to make the scene visually interesting as they go along. So they'll take slightly longer to do. More cast. Now that's the problem with casting too. Yes, you've got to pay a cast, but let's say you're doing an ultra low budget where you're just, everyone's doing it for shares in the film or they're doing it for pizza and giggles. Getting those people to coordinate, getting those people in the room at the same time, it can lengthen your shot. So if the time it's going to take you to get your primary photography. So while it's lengthening that time to get your primary photography, it's costing you anything else that you've rented. If you've rented lenses, rented cameras, you might be one of those people that shoot everything on your iPhone, but still it's going to take longer for your film to be done, which means people will stay enthusiastic less. People are very enthusiastic over a short period of time. If you can do your primary photography in 2 to 3 weeks, you've got a very good chance of finishing your film if it's ultra low budget. But if you're going to say it's going to take 4 or 5 months, people will leave. People just get sick of their involvement, especially if you've got them in the start and in the end, in the middle. For one day here, a few hours there, one night, whatever, people will just leave. So time is your biggest expense. So time and location. So make sure you've got everything in your location that can be done in one location. Don't have a second location for no reason. Crowds drive up cost immensely. So don't have extras. Don't have more characters than you need. So it's contained. So when I say contained, they mean one location with very few people and the story is about the people. That means that a lot of people are going to write that buddy story about, a friend in an apartment and the drama of their friendship and stuff. There's a lot of those sorts of stories around, but it's because they're cheap to make. The other thing that can really impact on a budget, whether you realise it or not, is the difference between day and night. Night, during a day, and you go outside and look at this, dawn has a different light, dusk has a different light. But during the day, except for the position of the sun, the light with bounce boards and stuff is fairly universal. But at night, it's not. Night has a difference in it that you can tell whether it's early in the evening, just before dawn, midnight, and nights can be shorter. They're more expensive. If you're filming at night, you will attract more attention than when you're filming during the day. External at night is always problematic. It's quieter, so ambient noise travels further. It is very hard to isolate night noise. So the very best thing if you're going to film night is film internals if you can. You can make it look at night. You can darken your windows, hang things over the outside of windows to stop light from getting in so it looks like night. Have internal lights on. Internal night is cheaper than external night. Internal day, because you can control the environment, you can just lock the door and leave it in place, is far better than external day. So internal is always cheaper than external. So set things internally if you can. That will keep your budget down. Don't have multiple locations for the one story to go through. If you're going to have other locations, drop separate stories in that weave into your story. That will keep your cost down. Moving your main story between locations is incredibly expensive. For getting it, if you have to come back for pickups, moving, setting up, storage, transport, food, insurance, permits. Depending on the city you're in, so jump online and find this out, you can actually film some stuff very cheaply externally in cities without permits. London will let you film on the streets of London with 2 actors, a cameraman, a sound guy, no video village, and a director. That's it. If you've got a tiny little crew like that, you can film without a permit. I think it was the last season or season 3 of Luther. Idris Elba show, fantastic. Catch it. It's really, really good. They ran out of budget. So they said, we'll rewrite and we'll move inside. but they'd already pulled the sets apart, so they had no sets. So if you watch the end 2 or 3 episodes of that season, it's all shot outside on the streets of London with only 2 actors. And even if they have 2 actors now, one will leave and another one walks into shot. They have a scene where you can hear all these police cars, and they've got cars parked and all the lights going, but there's only ever 2 policemen in shot. So it looks like there's 100 policemen at this building storming in, doing a raid, and you can hear it all done with audio effects, but you never see more than 2 people in shot, external, and that's how they got the entire show shot without permits in the City of London, because they had no budget, not even the budget to get hold of the permits. The BBC had pulled the pin altogether. You'll also notice that in a lot of movies, when people are punched, they're punched in the body. And that's a makeup reason, because if you punch someone in the face and they bleed, that has to be the same in every single shot. Continuity becomes a real issue. A bruise above an eye is a huge continuity issue between days, between shots. Going back over, picking up a line, we've got to clean the makeup up, blood on the change the shirt, put a new shirt on, launder it. I was involved in a thing where there was blood on a shirt. Every night they'd take the shirt off the actor, put it on a piece of cardboard, put another piece of cardboard on it, wrap it so it didn't get wrinkled, didn't get anything on it. The blood didn't travel, it wasn't transferred, and the next day took the shirt out carefully and put it back on the person for continuity reasons. Continuity, that's why people are punched in the body, not in the face, because and then it's all up into the acting. It's all the pain in the face. Makeup is easy to act under. A big swollen eye with blood pouring in the face, a person just doesn't smile and they look like they're in pain. But they'll put punches to the body because it brings your budget down. You don't have the makeup effect, you don't have the continuity. And continuity is an extremely hard and costly thing to do. Like I said, putting water on someone's face, reset back to before the water was on, is a continuity issue. So it's the cost of resets that people don't realise drives up the cost for most small films. Using a second unit, like I said, does allow you to get second locations, because they don't have to be filmed at the same time. They can be filmed weeks later, days later, months later, before the story themselves. They're separate pickups. Good for downtime. Allows you to weave a second storyline in quite simply. But if you're going to stay within one location, that's for that one story. If you can, keep the number of characters down. So let's go through them. Don't have crowds. Don't have extras. Don't have the henchman who stands in the background silently growling. He's got to. If he doesn't turn up, he's a continuity issue. Not only if you don't have to pay him, where is he? Is he going to upset a shot? Is he going to be? Yeah, it's just another thing you don't have to worry about. Get him out. Smallest number of characters. A single location, a location you can go back to when you can lock up. You don't have to pack up, reset. So get your times down. Don't do the resets. Don't do the repacks. Single location you can lock up and store in. Best way to keep budgets down. Don't have people physically have to reset or re-wardrobe or re-makeup between shots. Like I said, that's why so many punches are to the body and not to the face. Don't have blood effects. Don't have makeup effects. Don't have unusual hair. Don't have water being poured on people. All those things that you don't think about is what drives the cost of a small film up. You have to think about the effect that your action line has on the visuals, and if that changes the visual aspect of a person for the rest of the story. Because that means that if you're doing very low budget, you have to film your story in context, in real time nearly. You can't go back to pick up an earlier line or pick up an earlier shot, because when you do that, you have to reset everything, you have to launder the clothes, reset the makeup. We had a guy who was doing some free work, had to shave his beard for a paid job, which meant we had to go back and re-pick up all that stuff. If we were paying him and had him exclusively locked in, it wouldn't have been an issue. But that's what happens with very low budget and ultra low budget stories that you might be writing, is that you're relying on people to also maintain their look for you. I mean, they're doing you a favour by not, shaving their head, or not deciding to cut their beard or grow a beard or get a new tattoo. These are the things that can really impact your story. Makeup effects, blood effects, time, people aging, people changing their look. Each of your, and that's external. Sorry, that was me on a bit of a roll. But think of your action lines, how it changes the visual for the rest of the film, for the character. And if you could reset that action line, if you could go back to the start of the action line, the person looks the same as they do at the end of the action line. From the start of the action line to the end of the action line, if the person looks the same, you haven't impacted the budget. If the location doesn't get moved for arbitrary reasons, you haven't affected the budget. If you can reuse as much as you can, you will be writing a cheap film. The very best thing you can do to learn this is to write yourself a little 3 or 4 page short film and go and film it. And you'll suddenly see how much of a pain it is to have to reset things, to redo things, to change wardrobe when sound doesn't work. You'll realise that setting something under a bridge, which is where the Change of Me short film was that we filmed, having cars drive over that bridge, that has to match up or has to be taken out. And where can you hide a boom microphone? Though it doesn't pick up that, how do you take those sounds out? How do you take those ambient sounds out? Can you capture the same background noise, which is what your sound guy has to do? Your sound guy will capture 2 or 3 minutes of no one talking, just the sound of the room or just the sound of the location that I can layer in the background to start filling up when I have to do effects, when I have to do Foley work. These are all sorts of things that may or may not impact on the cost of your film. And the best way to learn this is to go and make a film yourself. Okay. As always, I'd like to sort of plug for the spec writers out there, or anyone who is needing some place to host their scripts, to nick over to scriptrevolution.com. Very, very good place. They're not a sponsor. I have my stuff there. If you want to go read my scripts, they're available over there at scriptrevolution.com. Search for Craig D. Griffiths. And also, if you want to contact me, you can leave a comment below, put a thumbs up for this, subscribe. We're going to put these videos as often as I can. But nick over to griffithscreative.com.au. Links for everything will be just below, and there you can see other articles, see videos, leave comments, see the movies that are being made. There's some books, there's stuff you can download. There's all sorts of resources there for writers over at Griffiths Creative. Until next time, keep writing.